Fantastic, thank you.
All right, got it. Then I can hit record too. Record on this computer. All right. Welcome everybody to Helen, Hamilton, and Walter chatting non-duality. Helen is at helenhamilton.org. She has a lot of books. And also at helenhamilton.org, there's a ton of stuff, a lot of free stuff, downloads, ebooks, videos, everything. A wealth of information there. And so some of the books are Transcending the Mind, Some Disassembly Required, How to Take Apart Your Noisy Mind, Dissolving the Ego, Now That You Are Formless, Reality Check, A Simple Guide to Final Enlightenment, Empowerment Course Handbook, How to Fall in Love with Yourself, Hamilton Gita, Musings from the One, and many more. So you're very prolific. And I was taking a look at some of the books and taking some notes. So anyway, I just want to say welcome and thank you for, we kind of said this before it records. So anyway, but it's always nice to say welcome for the people anyway.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really grateful that you agreed to come on. So one of the things I wrote down was most of humanity is lost in the illusion that they are their minds. I was wondering if you could expand on what is it to be lost in the illusion that one is their mind?
That's a good question to start off with. You start off with a nice, easy one.
We just jump right in.
Yeah, oh, that's brilliant. For me, I'm always trying to talk from my own experience, and for me, it was just clearer that I thought that my thoughts were reality. I thought that what I thought about the world and myself was reality. And it was only later that I began to realize that wasn't true. There was a whole reality going on underneath, outside of that my mind was creating this kind of virtual reality superimposed over what's actually going on, this constant commentary. And I think as you see it in yourself more, it begins to become more apparent that everyone's believing that what they think about things is what's actually occurring. And it's like a pandemic, isn't it, really, in a way?
Yeah. So what we believe about things is not what's actually occurring.
Yeah.
So what are some beliefs that, because you use the term, let's see, mind patterns. So, and part of your work seems to be dissolving these mind patterns or seeing through them or something like that. Could you talk more?
Just to see that ideas that we've had, and the biggest idea that's not true is that we're a separate being, alone, separate to everything else in the universe and everyone else. That idea plays itself out over and over again for a very long time. And it's, of course, it's not true, but it feels very, very true. And while we're stuck in that idea, it keeps reinforcing itself. We keep seemingly having experiences with other beings, other separate beings, and this idea gets reinforced over time. Because of that, it's hard to kind of come out of that idea. So a lot of the work we do is just to, on any authentic non-dual pathways, to see that there is, if I believe this thought, I'll have this experience of it. But that's not necessarily what's actually ultimately true about myself. I'm not really what I think I am. And then eventually, I'm not at all what I think I am.
So how do we break those patterns?
Probably first and foremost through seeing what you actually are, having some meditation practice or some self-inquiry helps to come to a direct experience that I can't really find this person that I think I am. When I actually look for it, I can't locate it. It was my whole journey had been, my whole life, in fact, had been oriented around this person that I thought I was, what I wanted, and then that superimposed itself onto this awakening pathway. I'm this seeker trying to get to awakening. And the first time I actually stopped and looked, tried to find, I just always assumed this person was here. When I actually looked, I couldn't find it. I just found this kind of blank, empty space and a body sitting in it. And it was quite shocking and scary the first time. But it does change you then. You can't really go back to believing 100% in this separate being, this me, this person.
Is that something that needs to be nurtured, or because you hear all different kinds of stories that it's on one side it's permanent and irrevocable, and it's the absolute, and it's just a seeing that there's no one here and there's no slipping back into any kind of identification. Then I also hear some people, yeah, they're in, they're out, and then they have practices to kind of remind themselves of their true nature. And so I wonder where you're at on that kind of a thing.
I think there's been a few beings who've had a direct experience of what they really are, and that's been powerful enough to kind of undo all of this at once, like Ramana Maharshi. And but it wasn't my experience. I had to keep, as you said, nurturing it, keep seeing it again and again and again. And then it was easier to see where I was believing those thoughts. Oh, this thought depends on me being a separate being, so it can't be ultimately true. And my experience of working with people is that I've never really come across someone who didn't have to see it again and again and again. It may happen occasionally that way, but I think it's very rare. It's more consistent. Each time we see, I can't find this person I thought I was, it goes deeper and leaves more of an impact. And then it's a little bit harder to believe your thoughts after that. Eventually just kind of culminates into this. I can always just see my thoughts. I don't get sucked into them and go off down this journey in the mind. But it was a very gradual process for me. It took a lot of confirming and reaffirming, seeing again and again and again that I'm not that one that's striving towards freedom or awakening or enlightenment, self-realization, whatever we're calling it.
So do you see stages to awakening?
It's like I already am that which is everywhere and formless. But if you use the analogy, the one I liked, I think I can't remember which teacher said it, that if it's dark in the room when you open the curtains, the light seems to come in gradually as you open the curtains, and the room lights up gradually if you open the curtains slowly. But the same light was there all the time. You just couldn't see it because the curtains, of course, the curtains here are our thoughts, and this big thought that I'm a separate being. So it's kind of immediate, but it's also gradual as well. It's one of those where there's kind of both answers are true. It seems to unfold over time gradually, but you're seeing the same thing each time. You're just seeing it clearer and deeper as you confirm it again and again.
What are your thoughts on prayer and meditation?
I've done a lot of both of them. My first prayers were very, I guess, kind of immature, like get me out of this mess, I didn't know who I was praying to or anything. I kind of used to reject it. I was brought up in a Christian background and raised with the idea of prayer, but it didn't seem like it was helping those people. I've nothing against religion, they just didn't seem happy. So I kind of rejected it for a very long time. And then 25 years later, roughly, I was in this very dark place where my life was just not working at all, and this prayer just kind of spontaneously arose, just help me. And I didn't even think of it as a prayer then. It was just this, I can't carry on living like this. I either wake up or I'm exiting this life, you know. I can't do that anymore. And gradually over time that became a regular practice, because it helped a little somehow. And then it just matured in the form of the prayer, more like help me see, not like get me out of this suffering, but help me see what I really am, or if there's any help out there for me, I'm open to it. More kind of and it merged into meditation and this kind of open way of being. And I realized a lot of the struggle I'd had was because I was trying to do this awakening thing on my own as a separate being. So the kind of antidote to that was just opening up and asking for help.
And you felt that prayer was answered?
It became a habit. It helped me open. It was just a way to open up. Like, I don't have to have all the answers myself. I was always really fiercely independent as a separate being. I had to do everything myself. I couldn't accept help at all. So prayer was a way for me to open up. And I began to see every prayer was always answered, just perhaps not in the way that we think. So I might ask to wake up to truth, and I get this experience that shows me the next thought I'm believing. It doesn't look like an answered prayer, but it really was. Okay, here's this thought you're believing, and then you can move beyond that then and go deeper into peace.
And how about self-inquiry?
Very similar, really. Again, I started with that. I had no idea what I was doing. I was watching Adyashanti video, and he was talking about talking with this woman, and she just discovered what I was talking about, that there's nobody here, there's no separate person living in this body. And I was kind of terrified. I thought, I want to try that, but I'm really terrified in case I find out the same. But something in me just had to look anyway. And first time ever, I kind of sort of scanned my being and couldn't find it. It was actually quite scary and shocking, as I said. And then it just became the fastest way into the direct experience of what I really am. I'm not a thing. I'm not a someone. I am more like space. I am more like emptiness. So it wasn't natural to me at first. I had no idea what self-inquiry. I thought it was a thought process for a long time, but eventually realized it's a direct experience of what we are.
And that's what your satsangs are all about.
Yeah, the fastest way to it's these like rowing a boat with two oars. I'm always trying to help people see what they actually are, and then help them undo the ideas that are getting in the way of that seeing being a permanent thing, because that just becomes natural, spontaneous, and effortless to be this emptiness once these ideas of because you can see and see and see and see and see what you are. And those things will get deeper, but you're still believing these ideas on the other hand here, so you're going to get thrown out of that peace back into some kind of suffering. And it's usually a combination of both, working through these patterns and helping people see clearer what they already are.
And so what are we? What is true nature?
That's a mystery to me still. A beautiful mystery, but we can use words like formless everywhere. Not a thing. I am there's one being experiencing itself as all of these forms. We can use all of those words, but really it's a mystery, isn't it? It's just I don't know what I am still after all of this time. But the thing is, I don't have any assumptions now about what I am. So it's really just it was more of an undoing for me of all the things, even to hold on to the idea that I am formless or I am emptiness. Still, eventually I didn't want that either. I just wanted to be in the mystery of it. It's just showing up as all of this, whatever it is, this unseen presence, this silence, consciousness, emptiness, whatever we call it. But it's unchanging in its invisible aspect and constantly changing in this visible aspect. Our experience is always changing. We can't really ultimately say what it is. We can say what it looks like in this moment, what it feels like right now. Right now it's looking like this conversation for us. But it's always going to be in motion, the manifestation of it, isn't it?
Because you were saying in a video that I am is the highest truth.
Yeah.
So when I hear that I am, I wonder what that is. What am I affirming exactly there?
The one thing you cannot deny is that you are, that you exist. We could argue through the mind forever what we exist as. But something right now is using that body to ask questions, and something's using this body to answer them. There's something here that's operating both of these bodies. And that cannot be denied. Even if you use that body to say, I do not exist, something has to be here to say those words, to make the mouth move and say those words. That's the one thing from everything else after that is to do with the body or the mind. And the one thing we know that we can experientially prove is that we do exist. There's a sense I exist. Everything else after that is of the mind or the body. I'm a man, I'm English, I'm American, I'm married, I'm single, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm cold, I'm a scientist, it goes on forever describing the mind and the body. The one bottom line of it all, the only thing you can prove that's to do with you and not your mind and your body is this sense I am, I exist. Took me a while to get that, but it's the only thing that's certain, isn't it? There's something here that's you. Whatever that is, we don't know. We're just talking about that mystery. But it is here.
Yes, there's a sense of that. I guess the only difference is I have a hard time saying that I am that. Like there seems to be a that, or there seems to be a no thingness animating all the separate parent things. Like you said, speaking through you, speaking through me, or speaking as me.
Yeah.
I think that is me more than I am that. Because I don't think there is a Walter that can claim any part of the totality. It's just the totality appearing as Walter. So any like I am, like when I've heard that a million times, you can't deny the fact of your own beingness. And I don't see it as my own beingness. I see it as just beingness.
The beingness, yeah.
But there's no personal claim or identity or anyway. It's just because you talk a lot about I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's what self-inquiry helped me with, is what is that I that says I am? And it, as you use the word totality, which is a very good word, ultimately come to see that it is the totality saying that. It sounds like Walter, it sounds like Helen, but it's the totality that would say that it's using these bodies and this very loose personalities to express itself.
So the totality is claiming to be Walter and Helen.
Pretending for a while.
you say, let's see, our mind and body are always in a seeming process of becoming ever clearer, brighter, and happier manifestations of the true self. Our unmanifested nature is ever perfect, total, and complete. And you say, with this, you'll be able to take any particular mind pattern that is happening for you right now, understand it, work it backwards, and end up in the awakened state as the perfection that you are.
Oh, you've been doing your homework.
So that sounds amazing. Has this been your experience that people end up in the awakened state? And is it a state?
Well, state is probably the closest word, but there isn't really, if you could think of a word that describes a permanent experience, but there isn't a word for that. State is just the closest word I've been able to find. Condition, but then it sounds like, I don't know, but naturally I'm going to use the word state for want of a better one. The awakened state manifests spontaneously when there's no thoughts being believed by that person. So the thoughts can be there in my mind, but if I'm not believing them, giving them a lot of attention, there'll be peace, which deepens. It just arises naturally, spontaneously. We haven't done anything to get it. It's just the natural state of a human being, because a human being is the totality. They're not separate, and they're not going to die or run out of anything like we worry about. That's the natural state of a human being when those thoughts aren't obscuring that truth, that light. It's abundance of peace, and then that deepens into joy and love, even bliss, as that seeing continues to deepen in the mind and the body. It's like a dimmer switch on a light. At first it seems it's turned right down, so there's some light coming, but not much. And then as you release these ideas that have been in the way, it's like turning that switch up so it gets brighter and brighter. And then that's what we imagine that awakened place to be. And we see many examples of that, people feeling a lot of peace, love, joy. Didn't start out like that. They were feeling, a little bit of peace and a lot of fear. And gradually it just kind of swaps over as they work through these ideas.
Yeah, you make a distinction about two kind of minds, like the mind that just remembers to turn off the stove when you're done, but the kind of the worrying mind, or the one that's always in the future and in the past, and that mind can kind of diminish.
Yeah, because that mind is mostly running on thoughts that are generated by, how do I find what I'm looking for? We're all looking for different things as human beings. Most of us. I was looking for approval, security, safety, love, all of those things. As a sense that I'm a separate being, I'm trying to get those things from other beings, or from my career, or whatever, my family. I'm trying to get what I want and need from other beings. But most of all, as I come to see that I'm not a separate being, that starts to change. I'm starting to allow that to come from the inside out. So the recognition that I'm never going to die automatically, as that deepens, brings a lot more peace and a reduction in fear. What drives that crazy mind, that cyclic, the same old thoughts, is the mind trying to figure out how to achieve what we want and need. And it can never quite succeed because it's working from the assumption that I'm separate to this other person, that they should give me something. If I behave this way, they'll like me and they'll approve of me, they'll give me their approval, or they'll make me feel safer. or something like that. It's a very kind of basic but very pervasive way of thinking. So as you see that those things that you're looking for are inside you anyway, because you are the totality, then this kind of trying to get something begins to disappear, and the thoughts about how to get it. There's more just an allowing to come from the inside out. More than enough security, more than enough. I'm approving of myself first and foremost. I don't need that from others. It's nice if it comes. We're not saying that's a bad thing or anything. Just I'm feeling more safe and secure and adequate in myself then as the totality. I'm not trying to get something from every experience I'm having. Like, I'm not trying to make you like me right now. You're not trying to make me like you. We're just having an open, free conversation.
Yes. It's just the enjoyment of what's happening without thinking about the outcome or some
I need
end
to ask this
result.
question so it's a good interview, and if it's not, then it's and all that stuff going on, right? People won't like me, and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that like with music when I play the drums, and if you think about, oh, I get that fill coming up,
Yeah.
and you start getting nervous. Oh, you you're definitely gonna mess up, but if you're just playing and it comes up and it just happens and it comes out beautifully, but
And right out of the totality, out of the emptiness, isn't it? It's not being diminished or filtered through thoughts, self-conscious thoughts like, am I going to do this right? And it's like pure art then, whichever way it's expressing. It's just coming straight out of the creative faculty.
do you find people you work with, because of that some people's minds are more wired that way, and it's almost impossible for them to see this because it's just too much monkey mind or analytical mind or some block that is just something like that
Some
preventing
people it
people?
takes longer than others. I mean, I was the most stubborn student I've ever met. I absolutely would have been the worst. So it's always possible to come out of the mind. It's just sometimes that seems harder. Power of the totality that we really are is infinitely powerful, way more than the mind. And the mind is taking its cue from what we're feeling ourselves to be. So as we're seeing clearer what we really are, it's easy to come out of these thoughts. And then as we're coming out of these thoughts, it's easier to see what we are. So it starts off very slowly, but then it's kind of cycles upwards faster and faster. And if you can have a direct experience, I'm not anything. My body's a thing, but I'm not a thing. I don't have any edges like my body does. Then it's very hard to believe any thought after that I am a thing with a job and all these things that we're trying to I need my boss to like me and all of that stuff. So some people it'll take a little longer, but the power of the self, the infinite self, is such that it easily can override the mind when it's ready to. Most of our thought process is habit, just pure habit. I think this way and it's never been challenged. And I keep thinking this way. So quite often the turning point is just being willing to look at which thoughts aren't true. I've seen people come out of certain ideas that they're not good enough, or that there's something wrong with them, just after years and years of believing them, like we all have, but just because they're finally willing to question that. What if that's not actually true? I've experienced it being true again and again, but if I am the infinite self, I keep experiencing these thoughts as my life over and over again. And then to get out of that, it's just being willing to question, what if it's not actually how it is?
Yeah, that is amazing process. Let's see, you say understanding leads to acceptance, which will in turn lead to dissolving the repetitive mind patterns that cause us so much suffering. I think we just covered that. You say, please note that when I use the word mind or ego, I mean the aspect of our mind which is somewhat dysfunctional, repetitive, doubting, judging, and fearing, etc.
Yeah.
It is this aspect of our mind we would like to dissolve and transcend, and not the useful function aspect of the mind that I talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
About the oven. Yeah.
You forgot to turn the oven off, or
Yeah.
turn left here because there's roadworks down there and you'll get delayed. You know, that's useful thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So if if we do not leave now, so this is the healthy aspect of our mind that will still be available after you fully awaken to your true self and live in and as the freedom you are. In fact, you'll be able to access your mind whenever you want or need to use it, rather than it being used by it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just naturally, without all that repetitive nonsense thinking, it naturally falls back into silence, the mind, until you need to use it. It's just quiet, and then there's a thought, there's a helpful, useful thought, and then after that thought's gone, it's just quiet again. It's not trying to solve an impossible problem the whole time from this false assumption that I'm a someone. So its natural resting place is silence and stillness anyway. It's just been, our mind's been greatly disturbed by trying to solve a problem that it can't do. And that's what I mean by the understanding of that. That brings, as I start to understand that my mind is thinking so much because it's being told it's the tool to fix this. How do I find happiness and peace? And we're trying to do that through our mind, and our mind can't do that because it works in duality and two-ness. So as you really start to understand that, there's a kind of a letting go. It's not that you push the mind away, you just see it's not the best tool for the job. So a more direct tool is meditation, self-inquiry, something like that.
And those don't use the mind?
You start off with, I mean, we could use a thought like, who am I, or what am I, or where am I, self-inquiry question. And my mind may try to answer that question. I'm a someone, I'm a person, I'm Helen, or I'm emptiness, I'm the totality. But if we stay with that question, it'll take you outside of the mind, underneath the mind, where there's a direct experience of that which is watching the mind. The mind is just happening in front of you and you're watching the thoughts come and go. Gives you a little distance from it. So there's nothing wrong with the mind, but if it's going to be thinking, we might as well give it something useful to think about. It's a question to obsess over, like, what am I, or who am I? It undoes this assumption that I know who I am, actually. I am this someone I've always taken myself to be. Question. It's perhaps the most intelligent thought the mind is capable of, the intellect. So the highest thought. Maybe even the idea, the thought that I don't really know who I am. And that becomes quite a comforting thought after a while. Terrifying at first, but comforting, quite blissful even.
Yeah, actually, I think I wrote something you said about that. I laughed deliriously at the idea that I could know something.
Yeah. It's the greatest arrogance I ever had, was this. Because I think, like most people, I set off on this non-duality path to find out what I am. When I find out what I am, I'm going to be happy, peaceful, awakened, whatever. And my thoughts about myself became more expansive, like I am the emptiness, I am freedom, I am formless, and all of that. Less and less about me as a someone. Any thoughts about myself, any self-definition at all after a while became something I didn't really want. What's it like to just be comfortable in not knowing who I am, what I am? That it's been programmed into us to avoid that experience at all costs of not knowing something. But really, that's freedom right there. I don't know what I am still. And that is extraordinarily joyful. Anytime I try to define myself, it'll change in the next moment anyway. Even as a human being, I'm changing constantly.
So, not knowing what we are, but having a sense that we're not minds or bodies or thoughts or feelings, sensations. But not, does this continue after the body dies?
Yeah, because the direct experience of it's not dependent upon a body. It can use a body like it's doing now, and it loves the body and it, looks after it, but it's not, like, doesn't need one, because it's seeing and hearing through the eyes and ears and all of that. But it is independent of the body. And as the seeing deepens, you'll see, but I'm everywhere. So bodies are coming and going all the time. It's only the mind that likes to pick one body and say, this is mine, that's yours, and this is mine.
Yeah.
I know which one is my body, and there's another assumption, But if you are infinite, if there's only one being, then all bodies are yours in a way, or none of them, whichever way you like to. And then the seeing deepens even further, that even this body is the totality, even the thoughts of the totality, even the emotions. It can show up in so many different ways. Anything that seems to arise out of that empty space of totality, it must be that too, even if it looks like something else. It must be. That understanding deepens as you stop identifying with just one body. That's the trick, really. Because then this is me and everything else is not me. And that's like the most painful place to live.
But right now we will respond to our names when they're called, and we have our own lives, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when the body dies, I just wonder, will that sense of being, Walter, does that continue?
There's a kind of a whether you want to call it a soul or individual but not separate energy form that is Walter. Walter is not just a body. So you can call, it's been called so many things. It's like individual does not actually mean, when you look at the root of the word, separate. It means unique. So like each wave on the ocean surface is individual and unique, but not separate to the ocean, the rest of the ocean, and it's still just all water. So what Walter really is, you're showing up many ways. You're showing up as the formless totality. You're also showing up as this unique, energetic individual that seems to have been on this journey through many incarnations, and currently as this body too. So the body's gone, still that individual essence of you is there, and it'll still continue to seem to evolve in this unfolding. It's not just like, okay, there's infinite unmanifest formless totality and a body. There's something more subtle, an energy body, energy form, whatever you want to call it, that lives on past the body. It keeps experiencing different bodies.
How about the evolution of consciousness?
Yeah.
Do you think it's evolving as apparent time moves on, that this collective unconscious, or this wisdom is evolving, and do you think something's happening like that?
Yeah, in its manifestation, it's definitely evolving. It's evolving as a cat, isn't it? It's learning, to run away from the dog rather than towards it. It's learning in a simple way. It's evolving. A plant learns to grow towards the light rather than away from it. As a human being, it's got more opportunities for conscious learning. My thoughts about myself as a separate being don't really serve me. That's what we're learning in this lifetime. And I think it's evolving faster right now than it ever has, consciousness as a whole, especially as a human species. And it really does need to.
You said one of these books, Dissolving the Ego, you wrote it as a response to, I understand this mentally, but how do I live this? And I've heard versions of that, understanding it intellectually, but not experientially. So how do you help people with that? Because it's a lot of people that just will listen obsessively to YouTube videos or read these books, and they can give their own satsang because they have it all memorized.
Yeah.
And it's really, I guess when it comes down to it, it's not that complex either, non-duality. And so you can really understand it quite easily. But what I read there was that, there's I'm sort of not crossing that line from the head to the heart, let's say.
Yeah, it's I think until someone's ready to cross that line, there's nothing you can do. If they're really because they are the infinite totality, if they're really set on exploring it through their mind still, there's not a lot anyone can do. Even if the Buddha showed up right next to them, it would just be an interesting conversation they have or something. And it's ready whenever it's ready, as each one of us to go into a more direct experience. For me, there was just I'd read so many, like you were saying, read so many books, watched so many satsangs, and my head was just full. But it wasn't helping. I wasn't feeling, in fact, I was feeling worse and worse the more I tried to take in. So there was this feeling that just developed over time of just feeling hungry is the best word for this isn't enough. What I'm doing isn't enough. Not in terms of the amount of activity of seeking, reading, tending satsang, meditation, etc. But I don't want to read about sages' experiences anymore. I want to experience what they experience. And that became all-encompassing, that desire. And then a few very brief moments of seeing what I actually am, like nanoseconds, that fuels that desire. Like, I want to see that again. And then I want to live like that. That desire just grew and grew and grew until it took over everything completely. And that's happening with each one of us. It's not anything unique to me. It just, everyone's wherever they're at in that process. Once they're at that place where they are willing to directly experience, and the slightest word, just one sentence or something, can spark a direct experience, question, self-inquiry question, or their normal average everyday meditation that they did the day before that had no effect, really, suddenly this profound state of consciousness opens up to them, maybe for a short moment. It's really about how willing we are to go beyond the mind in that way, to a direct experience.
You use like koans a lot, or maybe like where is the listener, or where are you seeing from, or
sometimes
these kinds of questions to ponder. That's not really about the answer as much.
we do a lot of contemplation as a way to come out of thoughts. And contemplation, for me at least, how I'm using that word, is just to ask a question. If a thought is true, is that actually true? And that question becomes more important than any answer, because it's taking us into a direct experience of freedom. we've kind of explored some questions in this conversation. Is it true I know who I am? You know, just then getting comfortable with that not knowing. So questions and things that the mind can't understand, sometimes those are helpful. Koans are a good example of that. People have used over the years, something the mind just can't figure out, although it tries to, of course. And it runs around in circles trying to figure it out and then eventually gives up. And then in that giving up of efforting, there's an opening there. For me, asking a question, like, what am I? That question really, where am I? That question really just, my mind couldn't answer that. And it took me into a greater space of being. Again, sometimes that in conjunction with explaining to someone that we think we know where we are. We think we are where this body is. That's the assumption we have. Sometimes just pointing that out. Do you really actually know where you are if you're not your body? So just a question sometimes is enough to really open the curtains quite a bit.
Yeah. That's how when I hear guided meditations, and I always feel like during the guided meditation, it's a wonderful experience. But then, it brings me back to the question about daily life and being at work and traffic or whatever. That level of peace to bring that, to the marketplace, as they say, from the meditation cushion. That's kind of a classic. But yeah, it seems to be the biggest challenge with this, I'd say.
Yeah, it was for me.
So
I could reach some profound states in meditation eventually. I mean, bliss that just was intense, peace, lost all awareness of the world for half an hour, and then I had to get up and go pick the kids up from school or do the food shopping and hit some traffic, as you say, or somebody says something to me that wasn't kind, and straight out of that beautiful place back into fear and suffering and anger, shame, all of that. So that those experiences in meditation, momentary or prolonged experiences of who I really am, of just not knowing anything, actually, they just fueled this desire. I want to know this so deeply, or be open so completely, that I never seem to lose this, that it's with me 24/7 effortlessly. And that desire just became the most, I just couldn't carry on with this in and out experience, that a lot of people have. And beautiful meditation, then I get to work and the boss is running late and he takes it out on me, and it's two very opposite experiences then. One's open, light and free, the other one's very contracted and tense, and well, we know that one very well.
You say you're not being asked to become anything other than you already are. You're only being asked to see clearly and then make a stand for freedom. But what is making a stand for freedom?
That's different to everyone. I think it's a unique thing, but for me, it was to see that I already am, through meditation and self-inquiry, I already am what I'm looking or trying to become, all this efforting towards. I already am that. And then to value that, seeing more, when a thought came up about I'm not getting there, I'm not getting towards this awakening thing, I'm failing, or I'm not good enough, or whatever idea was coming, will I in that moment be willing to challenge that thought? That thought isn't true. If I am already what I'm seeking, that thought cannot be. You can't be anywhere to get to, actually. So my stand for freedom, how it was for me, was this kind of determination that came out of that desire to try to remember that in those moments when the mind's doing its thing and it's going crazy and there's all kinds of negative emotions, and you just had that same old experience again, the one that you really hate that keeps on going around. Mind will suggest, why is this still happening? I'm failing, and why can't I come out of this? And in that moment, then my stand for freedom was, can I, more than giving my allegiance to that thought that I'm failing, can I stand here in the knowing that I'm already what I'm trying to become, even though my experience is contradicting that in this moment? My experience is a reflection of what I have given my allegiance to, thoughts. Can I stand here in my seeing? Even if that only feels like a mental exercise at first. I've seen at one point that I'm not who I think I am. I'm not that seeker that's trying to get somewhere. And that's just something that begins to happen more and more often, this standing in your truth and then not being swept away by mind. And it gets easier and easier as you do that. I suppose it's different for everyone what those words mean, but that was it for me. I'm really, really determined next time this thing comes up not to just go with it.
How about doership and free will and stuff like that?
Do we have free will? This question comes up over and over again. And as a separate being, no, because it doesn't exist, that separate being. Which was terrifying to my mind. It's like, okay, I'm just on this railroad track and I've just got to see where it goes. I have no control. And it was quite scary, quite terrifying. My life is just gonna unfold in front of me and I won't be able to change it or anything like that. But as that seeing deepened of what I actually am, then it began to become clear that I am the source of the entire cosmos, actually. I'm not just this human being. And from there, I have a lot of different choices. From the knowing that what I am looks like a human being, but isn't. I have a ability to consciously create a different life, to choose peace over fear, or to choose stillness over conflict. I've got that ability to choose that. That's my only free will, really, in any moment, is, do I go with this thought or do I stand in what I've seen to be true? That is enough free will. That turns our whole life around into something quite beautiful. It's never one of those yes or no questions. No, there isn't any free will as a separate being, but yes, there is as the self, the totality. You're the very fact that we're having this conversation means that the totality chose to appear as these two bodies. Or chose on some level, at least.
That sounds like Course in Miracles a lot. Is basically they will say the same thing, that your only two choices are, because that's what they call the miracle, is choosing the Holy Spirit over the ego.
Yeah.
And there's a line, I can choose peace rather than this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess the way I see it is, we'll just stick with the totality, is doing its thing, and nobody knows what that is. There seems to be no purpose or reason to any of it. Just the only thing that I come up with, and anything anyone comes up with, is just going to be a concept anyway, but it's just the love to be.
Yeah, for the joy of it, maybe if there is a reason, maybe it's very, very loosely that it wants to explore all the shapes it can appear as, or something like that.
Yeah.
And very, even that, like you say, is a concept, but it doesn't have a purpose in the way that a human being would say, what's the reason for all this? Or maybe it would say, because I can, or something like that, because I can do this, you know, something light and fun like that.
Yes. Because it can. Yeah. So in that way, I don't see a different will or a different or a cause and effect. It just seems to be one apparent happening.
One selfing through all
So
the different ways it's doing it.
yeah. Yeah, no nouns, no people, places, and things, just apparent happenings,
Yeah.
just apparent doings. So yeah, when it comes to that kind of a thing with a choosing the Holy Spirit, because then I end up, if I go down that path, let's say I end up beating myself up because I didn't choose correctly enough, But another part of that is the forgiveness, where they say, forgive them for what they did not do, because there is no chooser, there is no doer. So who's ultimately responsible for choosing incorrectly? Or
Isn't that Course in Miracles as well, where it says, and I might be wrong there because it's a long time since I read it, but the only thing to forgive is the idea that there's anything to forgive.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was thinking when you said that. So it seems, I don't know. What do you think about that? Forgiveness because there's no responsibility ultimately.
Not as a separate being, no responsibility in that way, but I think forgiveness is a natural function of the awakened, of the totality, awakened state, whatever we're calling it. The moment you start to see that everyone's believing their thoughts and that they can't do otherwise until they can, then that their actions are, they like to feel they're choosing, but their actions are really very limited. If my thoughts about myself are judgmental and self-hating, I'm going to have a very limited range of actions that can come out of that. If my thoughts about you are very judgmental and, sort of very low frequency, then there's only a certain range of words and a certain type of conversation that's going to happen between us. And that's just a universal law. It's only later when I can come out of my thoughts that I can have access to compassionate thoughts and actions and words and things like that. So it's not that everyone should be kinder, it's that they can't be right now. They will be as soon as they can. They're kind of limited by what thoughts they're believing. As you wake up to the truth, really, you sort of see that it becomes a fundamental aspect of that awakening, that everyone's lost in this, right back where we started, everyone's lost in this virtual reality. They're asleep and dreaming with their eyes open in these stories that are going on about themselves. And naturally, forgiveness comes with that then, because you've been there, you're coming out of it yourself, and you can remember how very, very real that seemed. So real that we don't question it for a very long time. And naturally, forgiveness and compassion arises from there.
You said you allowed yourself to be deconstructed. And you felt encouraged and inspired to deconstruct more.
It's just all the things I thought I knew about myself. All this thought constructed self that I'd made around myself. This virtual reality. It became clear that it was a undoing and unlearning rather than a learning of something. To actually live as this, I could see what I am, but to actually live as that 24/7, it really we're asked to deconstruct this thought constructed self we've made. I am this person, and here are my values and dreams and desires and goals, and here are my failures, and all of that needs to be eventually let go of, bit by bit, of course. As we were saying, it's very rare for it all to go at once, but that willingness to let go of that becomes all-encompassing. It's just so much nicer to experience myself without any ideas, to just not know. And this thought constructed, this separate sense of self is just a bunch of thoughts that we keep alive. We keep reinforcing over and over. And then at some point, we just don't really want to do that anymore, because it's becoming tighter and more constricted. It's becoming like a very bad dream rather than a nice dream. Most of us end up in satsang because our life, our health, our finances, our family isn't working, something like that. Not always, but the majority of people come to awakening through suffering. It's a very rare individual that isn't driven to seek the truth from suffering. Certainly wasn't the case for me. It was absolutely driven by suffering. I have to get out of this horrible thing I'm living in.
I used to hear that, yeah. Pain is the touchstone of spiritual growth.
Absolutely. For a long time, yeah. It'd be nice if we just woke up one day and said, I want to find out what I really am. But it's only when those ideas we've been believing have become too small and limiting that the self, the totality, wants to break out of that.
Do you still have thoughts that you have to question or inquire into?
Every now and again, something will pop up, but when I first started contemplating questioning, I had to do it over and over again every time it came up to come out of it, because of the momentum of believing these thoughts. Now, if there's something that pops up, I can just look at it, and seeing of it is enough. Oh, no, that's not true. It's just kind of obvious then. It's not to say stuff doesn't pop up, but it's momentary, and it's seen straight away that that isn't true, and there's no fight with it or anything. It's just seeing, okay, that's just an old idea. Because the deeper that self-inquiry, that seeing has gone, you can get this distance from the mind. It's really just happening in front of you, because at first it feels like it's all around you. It's like it is you, it's talking to you. But later it's just something talking. It's just a talking machine happening somewhere inside you. Without that idea that it's talking to me, there's not this tendency to go with it so much. It's just a bunch of thoughts talking in a head, in a body that's inside the emptiness of my being. It doesn't start off like that, of course. It feels quite the opposite. This is really everything the mind is saying is talking to me. Everything it's saying is how we start out, isn't it?
That's quieted down quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it's hard to. I've heard all kinds of people talk about no mind, and that they don't have an inner dialogue at all, or that some people say they don't think. But all you can do is have your own experience and look into that. But there does seem to be a narrator up there. It doesn't talk as much as it used to. But yeah, this seems to be somebody saying, I think I read Sam Harris's book, like, where's my keys? He got into this whole thing, like who's saying, where's my keys? Who's he talking to? And like, it's kind of a funny thing to think about, like this inner monologue that we have. But I have to say that ruminating and this kind of the psychological suffering has diminished
Yeah.
through seeing this somehow. I don't even understand it really.
It's not, to me, it's not, I mean, I had a period where there were no thoughts at all, like this honeymoon period. Mind was just absent without leave, and I was very happy. And then it kind of started back up again, but not in the same way. And it was more trying to understand what had just happened. Some seeing had just happened, and there are thoughts that come, but they're few and far between now. Some, like I said, sometimes if something pops up. So, but instead of it being someone shouting in my head, it's more like a guy whispering in the corner of the room, and you go, what? Say it again, you know. So it's or a TV. The TV is just playing in the corner. You don't necessarily need to listen to it. Before, you would have been really glued to it, you know, because it's obviously about me. But then it's just mind doing its thing somewhere, you know, somewhere, and it's just much quieter when it does speak. It's not urgent. It's no different. Eventually, thoughts are no different than any other phenomena. Like, I don't have an argument with the chair I'm sitting in or the microphone I'm using, the laptop. I'm not like trying to push them away. So why would I do that with thoughts or emotions? Or they're all phenomena, aren't they? Just subtle phenomena. And it doesn't matter if the room is empty or full if you know you are the room. You're not really trying to rearrange the furniture anymore so much. I mean, it tends to quieten down then anyway, as you've seen. It begins to happen by itself. Not anyone doing it. It's just the self, the totality is just gradually less and less interested in playing with thoughts. Not because there's anything wrong with them, it's just done that. It's bored with that now. Something like that, you know. What's it like to be a human being, knowing what you really are? We've done the what's it like to be a human being, believing my thoughts that I'm a separate being. We've done that so many times. Now, what's it like to move around in the world without believing that? It just wants to explore and to experience like that.
It seems so clear they're not our thoughts.
That's the thing right there. You hit the nail on the head, right? They're not my thoughts. I don't have to do anything with them, push them away, accept them, believe them, anything. They're just thoughts. Like rain falling out the sky. You're not like, oh my God, you know, I need to run away from this. They're just, it's just raindrops. They're just thoughts. They come and they go.
Yeah. And then we have thoughts about thoughts and
Thoughts about how to stop thoughts.
labeling thoughts as good thoughts and bad thoughts, and
Awakened thoughts and unawakened thoughts.
but yeah, like without a thought, I mean, everything just is as it is. And yeah, that just blows me away because
That's beautiful what you've just said. Really beautiful.
because we just pile words and concepts and labels and divisions on things, and but just sitting with that, the piece of no thought and not needing to change anything or make something better, or it's a sweet place to be.
And eventually with the mind too, and I need to change that or make it better. It's just doing what it does. It's perfectly doing what it does, which is talk a lot, create stories. It's perfectly fulfilling its purpose.
You said you were smitten with the undressing of reality itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it sounds like they say your head is in the tiger's mouth. Like you were in this process of deconstructing, undressing, as you say. And then you say later, I love this one. I had lost any sense of loss or losing.
Mm-hmm. it felt risky at first to kind of let go of my thoughts, you know, to challenge my thoughts, because they were my thoughts, or so I thought. But as I came to see they were just thoughts, and then there wasn't anyone here to whom they belonged, and that became clearer and clearer, then without the filter of thoughts obscuring my perception of reality, everything started to become quiet. You said it yourself a few minutes ago, everything just is. And it begins to take on this innocent, beautiful quality to it. Like a tree is just being a tree, a human being is just being a human being, whatever that entails. And everything's just being what it is without this commentary going on. And every time I let go of something, there was just more reality, like the colors. None of it looks different. It's just more intense, like the colors and the tastes. Like doing something as simple as drinking a cup of tea in the morning. It's just like the best cup of tea I've ever had, because it can actually, or coffee, whatever we have, but you know, just to actually be fully there to taste it. Like I've never done that before. I was always in my head when I was just drinking it to get through it so I can go do something else. It seemed pointless to just sit and drink this tea and enjoy that, because it wasn't getting me anywhere. And now it's it's just a different way to I'm doing this thing because I want to experience what it's like. And there's a simplicity and a beauty in that, and it becomes quite awe-inspiring. And everything wants to play with you, then everyone wants to play with you a little bit, you know, and you're not caught up in thoughts so much. People try and have some fun with you, you know, and people are willing to laugh and joke a bit more around you somehow. And life becomes a lot more playful and light.
Or it's been said, it's a intimacy with all of life.
Mm.
And like you're saying about the coffee, I had that experience exactly at my mother's the other day.
Wow.
Yeah, she made this coffee and it was not great. You know, the brand wasn't great. I won't say what it is, but it was decaf and everything else. But and I drank it black, and I was going on and on about, wow, like you don't put any cream and sugar and all this other stuff. You can really taste the coffee and the
Yeah.
bitter notes. And I'm like, it's like wine. And like, and she's like, you know, like
She's looking at
really?
you like you've got out to lunch. Yeah.
Like, it's not that good. And I thought, okay, sure. But I really just found myself in the moment of enjoying that coffee and just really
The best
appreciating.
thing you've ever had. You never tasted coffee like it, right? It's and it's just because you're really able to let all your experience happen rather than it being diminished by thoughts. And life can become continuously like that. Even if I'm feeling fear or something, there's just an intimacy with that and an unwillingness to think about it, because that creates this separation between me and it. And I'm just right in that experience, and it becomes quite beautiful and blissful, even while fear is being felt or something. If I don't reject it by trying to think about it, I'm instantly here. Or if mind's thinking about it, but I don't go with that, you know, just the thoughts are here, the fear's here, I'm here. It's just beautiful. I remember the first time I ate chocolate after I'd really sort of, I just like, oh my God, this is the best chocolate I've ever had in my time. I'd eaten a lot of chocolate over my lifetime, but there was just this moment, you know, of ecstasy with a piece of chocolate. And it became clear that everything can be like that. Like a bird singing, or just sitting petting my cat, or tea in the morning. It's the like profound things become the ordinary things. They just kind of merge into each other. There's nothing mundane anymore so much. You see beauty where other people walk past it.
No ordinary moments.
Yeah. All extraordinary.
Yeah, and you say you lost the ability to become.
Yeah, finally, phew. I just let my mind and body do that, right? That's what they do. They're allowing more of this truth each and every day to shine through. We're all doing that. And I don't have to manage that process. I don't have to make sure it happens or anything like that. Can't get in the way of that process either. It's just this that I am, whatever this is. And it's expressing itself ever clearer each day, experiencing itself. And not just because I'm a teacher of all this or whatever that is, but it's doing that in every single form it's experiencing itself in. Like every day you're a little bit more Walter than you were yesterday, whatever that is, right? Who knows? But and tomorrow you'll be even more, and that's never ending. But not from an imperfection. There's nothing wrong with Walter today, but tomorrow will be even more amazing.
Yeah. So is there anything you would say it would be required to see this or get this?
Just everything that you need for this is going to come along the way. Just whoever ends up watching this, it's already started. You wouldn't be watching something like this if it wasn't. It's already too late probably to stop it, even if we could. That's not meant to kind of instill fear, just to kind of there's no separate being, and there's no separate being to get in the way of it either. That took me a while to figure that out, but willingness to accept that how we've been experiencing reality might not be the only way. Something like that, even if you've no idea what that means or what that is. You know, I didn't have any idea what that was. I still don't. But I'm having a much more fun time while I don't know.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. I really, really enjoyed it. Your questions are very insightful and a really spontaneous and free conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And is there anything you want to say in closing? Give out a website or anything coming up people should know about?
We've always got free satsangs. There's one free satsang every week, open to anyone that wants to attend, wants to know more. There's stuff going on the website as well. There's YouTube channel, Satsang with Helen Hamilton. Website is helenhamilton.org. Just like you said, there's loads of free stuff on there. Just check those out. And if this resonates, what we've been saying, great. If not, throw it away.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take
Walter.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.